Welcome, and welcome to all of you viewers to another close to the end of the season episode of Outwit Outlast. I'm the old co-host. I outlast. My name is Geoff. This is the younger co-host who outwits consistently, except when it comes to email addresses. And her name is
Wait, don't dox me.
her name is Amanda. Nobody will. I don't think any of our 12 listeners are going to dox you, but if they do, we'll be able to figure out who it is pretty fast. I don't think
That's
it's going
fair.
to take a rocket scientist to put that one together, which is good news because there are no rocket scientists left on the island after our after the amazing Cirie has exited, and there's no more. There's a little less joy on the island now that Devens has exited, and we're getting down to the end. I don't know about this last configuration of players. I'm a little bit running out of people to root for hard, but I still have some people that I'm interested in rooting for, and some people that I'm a little slightly rooting against, and that is going to make for a pretty good end to a pretty good season that had a lot of high expectations and tried a lot of crazy things, really, honestly. I think it's pretty gutsy for a show to take so many big swings, you know, this far into its life. And some of them
Yeah.
hit, some of them missed. So, Amanda, we're near the this was the penultimate episode of the season. As we get to the finale, I'm going to switch my hat around so that I can show some true rally cap uh, energy for my favorite player going into the finale.
You're gonna have to tell me who that is.
Well, my favorite players have all fallen by the wayside now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And my pick for the winner went long before there was a jury. We lost two great players tonight. I was really rooting for both of them in their own way, even though personally I didn't think Devens had much of a chance. For reasons that still remain sort of social and obscure to me.
And I think that, like, his resume wasn't great. And I think that, like, his biggest moves were arguably big moves in that they were fun to watch and not big moves in that they actually furthered his game. Because I think the fake
Yeah.
idol maybe helped sway that vote, but more likely just sort of made everyone feel annoyed and made him a huge target for his remainder of his time in the game.
Oh,
But he was so fun to watch this season, and
yeah.
I am sad to see him go.
He was, and I would say too that if he and Emily, if that big swing that they took had worked and Surrey had gone out, which it would have
Yeah,
if she hadn't had the vote, that we might be talking a very different conversation.
that's true.
Because that was a big strategic gamble, and
Yeah,
had it worked, it would have been good strategy. Had it not worked as
yeah,
it did, it just put an even bigger target on his already big target back, and he's
yeah.
destined to go home.
No, Rick Devens is nothing if not a big strategic gambler.
Well, he,
Which makes him such a good person to have on this season. I can't
yeah,
believe he was an alternate. He almost wasn't on this season, and I think he has been one of the most entertaining parts of it. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm happy that he was there.
I think in the future they should, not that I should be telling casting what to do, but they should always be looking for somebody who's a little bit uh, joyful and crafty and looking to have fun as well as win.
Yeah,
I don't know that they always cast a lot of fun players.
I think they're trying to more,
Mm.
and I think some fans don't love that. Like some fans are like, we want sort of bitter and petty and villainous people more, and I don't think I agree with that. I think that someone like Devens is perfect for the show, and maybe it's nice to have a little bit of balance. Like one of the things that made Devens sort of entertaining this season was watching him and Joe go head to head and be
Oh,
so different from each other. And I do think it's fun to have someone who's having a lot of fun kind of bounce off of someone who, although I feel sad that Joe's not having more fun, like,
No.
I think it was fun to see them interact. Although ultimately, both really good guys who I think, based on post game interviews, are friends and have texted each other to apologize a lot of times as the show
Oh,
aired.
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And there was a little moment when Devens got really vulnerable in the hammock. Unlike Coach in
Yeah.
the hammock, Devens got vulnerable in the hammock. Cirie
Yeah.
and Jonathan did not stay in the hammock.
No, Cirie and Jonathan collapsed to the ground in that hammock.
That's what if I ever write a book about Survivor, I'm going to call it In the Hammock.
This season honestly was a hammock heavy season.
It
I
was.
feel like every important conversation happened in the hammock. You could like cut together a version of this season that's like only hammock and I think still get the story.
Yeah, I actually agree. Totally, 100%. Good take. Um, yeah, I like that moment of Devens and Joe. Devens just
Yeah.
seems to have no filters when it comes to being vulnerable and having fun. And he picked his arguably biggest enemy on the island to have an
Yeah.
honest moment with. And Joe didn't look comfortable receiving it, but he received it,
Yeah.
and I felt like that was a kind of a nice little moment of closure before you knew that Devens was almost certainly going to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sad that Devens left. I am I am of course heartbroken that Cirie left.
Yeah.
I,
That was a tough one.
I think it's almost impossible to go into that game with her reputation and last as long as she did,
Mhm.
with a plan that had a really good shot of getting her to the final three. I think.
I think if things had gone a little bit differently in the last two episodes, she really might have made it because Ozzy really was going to bring her to the final
Yeah,
three, and so was Tiff. Apparently,
yeah,
I think that in post press, Cirie has been very confident that Tiff also would have taken her. I think there were like a few different ways that Cirie could have made it to the end, and it was just a series of events that didn't work out. And yeah, to come in with the reputation that she had, like she said, like I didn't think I would make it more than an episode or two into
yeah,
this game. And for her to be running it for like such a good portion of it is so impressive to me.
yeah.
I this brings me to my big question for this episode, I think, which is do you think Aubrey is right? Do you think that it's possible to be the best to have played Survivor without having ever won?
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
I think Cirie is the best player in the history of Survivor.
You
Probably.
think she's better than Parvati?
Yes, I do actually. Although that's close because I think
Yeah.
Parvati's pretty flawless. Even in not winning, the game play is high level all the way through.
It's true that Cirie's first season was better than Parvati's first season, and it's true
Yeah,
that on Micronesia, I think that if Cirie had made it to the final tribal council, she would have beaten Parvati. And it's just bad luck that Cirie didn't make it to the final tribal council because it was just because of the number of injuries that were on that season that they did a final two instead of a final three.
that's
Like Cirie has been so close and just sort of total random chance unluckiness like several times. Although I think that Parvati's best game of Survivor was actually the game she played on Heroes versus Villains. And maybe that's controversial because it's like, can it be your best game if you didn't actually win in the end? But I think she did such a good job that season. Anyways, I think you could argue that Cirie has. I just think she's like got to be the best strategic and social player to ever play Survivor.
I yeah. I'm gonna go with that for sure. Although there are two other players I think I would put up there. I think Sandra's like
Yeah.
and also not for nothing, but I think the most underrated winner of all time is Earl, and I think he played the best. I think he played the best game season of Survivor of any winner.
Better than Kim?
Better than Kim.
Better than Tony on Winners at War?
Yes. I put him as my number one Survivor winner.
I
And
think
those
what's
are both
tricky about.
pretty perfect games, especially Tony's in its way, because, I mean, Kim's was pretty controlled all the way through.
Yeah.
Tony's was a little more chaotic, and I think relied on a few more gambles.
Yeah,
But it
but
was
his
still
Winners
pretty.
at War game was a pretty controlled chaos, I thought.
I
I
thought
thought he
so
was
too.
pretty careful about all of that. I think the difference between Tony's win, for example, and Earl's is that Earl was on a season where a lot of the people he was competing against were like not very good at Survivor. And he was working hand in hand with someone who deserves a lot of the credit.
Yeah,
And I guess that's like one of my questions always in Survivor is like if a pair, and maybe you could say the same thing about Tony
yeah,
working with Sarah
yeah,
on Winners at War, but like if a pair can like take equal credit for a lot of a game, like Yeah Man is who I'm thinking of with Earl, like is
yeah.
that Earl playing the best game ever? Could Earl have played that game without Yao Man? We'll never know because he never came back, which is sad. But I
Well,
agree, he's a great winner. But I don't think he's better than Cirie.
well,
I think Cirie has been too consistently good at every game that she has ever played, like even Survivor and beyond. I don't know.
I don't disagree with you, and certainly more seasons to show more skill and more adaptability.
Everyone who wins Survivor or who plays Survivor has this mix that's very hard to parse out of like strategy and skill and luck. And like I think everyone who's won Survivor has gotten lucky at some point. And Cirie has gotten so unlucky
That's true.
so many
I
times.
was,
So I think
yeah,
to continuously play such good games while being like so unlucky, I think helps to explain why she's such a good player who's never won.
maybe that pushes her slightly above Earl, who did get a little bit of luck, but because that cast was so awful and racist and bullying, there
Yeah,
was a bigger target on his back, especially mid game.
that's fair.
That's a player that consistently outwitted and outlasted some pretty concerted efforts, and he
Yeah.
did it very neatly.
I'm with you that he's like one of the most underrated Survivor players of all time.
Yeah, it. Yeah, I always. Earl's only 55. He could have come back this
He
season.
could have come back.
I would
I
have.
think they've asked him at least a couple of
I've
times,
read
and
that.
he has had other stuff going on.
I've read that too.
Um,
I I respect the things that he's chosen to prioritize in his life.
yeah, but I would like to see him again.
Yeah, me too. It would be nice to see all the winners at some point. Maybe. There's some winners I don't really want to see again, particularly, but well, that's a different episode entirely.
Yeah, but bring back the Sapia at least.
Yes. Yeah, there
Um,
is a consistently underrated
Underrated. Yeah.
person. I don't understand. I've been reading a little bit more about. Did you read that Vanity Fair piece?
I
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that deep, but my takeaways from that article were, first of all, like, I appreciate the way that Jeff was instrumental in shifting the tone and sort of substance of the game away from what it was in its first 10 to 12 to 13 episodes
Yeah.
or more, into what has become New Era Survivor with some bumps along the way, moving away from those hyper competitive, jerky, cutthroat players seasons to something that is. I like the way they framed it, like it's all about getting up off the couch. And in that way, Cirie has become kind of emblematic of the spirit
Yeah.
of Survivor that I think vaults her into the Mount Rushmore of Survivor without ever winning. And I would say I should be the first personage on the Mount Rushmore, right? So I don't know why the Mount Rushmore imagery has popped into my head lately. I guess because it makes you make hard choices about who those what five, 5,
For
4, whatever.
yeah.
Depends on whether or not Trump gets his way. But anyway, it clarifies why so many audience members never really came with them for the new era. Just because
Yeah.
they wanted to watch a meaner show. And
Well, and I think there's an interesting distinction there for me between like I think Geoff kind of did two things that go hand in hand but aren't necessarily the same thing. One was to go from a show that was about what will people do to succeed and to win to a show that is more about like the journey is the
yeah,
point, like who's going to get off the couch.
great.
But I think that something simultaneous but that's not the exact same thing is going from a show that's really focused on and highlights like villains and meanness and to a show that highlights complex portrayals of interesting people.
Right.
And I think the second thing is entirely a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
just don't need to see bad people doing mean and racist and sexist things. And I think
Right.
that the new era is way better about not doing that.
Yeah.
I do think that I understand a little more why people miss a show that was about like what will people do to win
Yeah.
versus like a show that's about being on the show is sort of the point for people. Like I think the stakes in some ways were higher in old school Survivor, and the change is worth it to me in that it comes with this shift to complex portrayals of people. But I do think there's something so raw and compelling and in the moment about the first version that is harder to grasp when everybody's just so happy to be there. And it's so nice that they're also happy to be there. And there's something that comes with that that you also can't get in the other version. But so I think
Mm.
that's like a distinction that feels important to me.
It might explain too something that I've noticed lately about the Survivor player community, just as an outsider, which is that in the old version, the only way you could really become Survivor famous was by winning, basically, or getting very close, sort of.
I don't know. I think there were Survivor famous people who got famous by being villains and didn't necessarily get that close. Cirie was pretty Survivor famous and she didn't actually make it that far.
Okay, well, that's fair. But if you place your emphasis on character and character arcs,
Yeah.
there's an opportunity for
No,
more
I think that's
players
right.
to lodge in our memories because they're presented to us as characters with stories and arcs, and we want to kind of finish that. We've gotten to know them as
Yeah.
characters now, which is unfortunate in some ways, but
Yeah.
also allows for more memorable presences. But to be honest with you, the rise of social media has totally changed
Yeah.
the fan opportunities and the post game opportunities.
Yeah.
I want to go back to my second takeaway, which
Yes.
was
From the article.
a little vexing to me that Geoff says, if you think that complaining is going to change our minds, forget it. I know I'm locked into what I'm doing, and I don't care what you think, basically,
Yeah.
which is good and
Yeah.
bad. It's good because I think a lot of their changes do seem to me to be compelling and for the better of the show and maybe entertainment or society. But there's still room for improvement. And to have that closed
Always.
mindset suggests to me a problem that I've seen creep into what I think is a problematic edit in the last two seasons. That I wish I knew that there was somebody more open minded to consider those points that a lot of people are raising across the media sphere with a
Yeah.
much higher platform than we have. And
Yeah.
it's too bad that you've essentially had the leader of the tribe saying, I'm not listening to you.
Yeah, because I think I appreciate that he like is so passionate about Survivor and has such a clear vision, and I think that's good. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think that like throughout the history of this show and every show, like fans push back because they want the show to be better, which is a point the article made on things that are valid, I
Mm-hmm.
think. Like I think there's no perfect season and it's true that and I think this point was also made in the article like it makes sense to wait until the end of the season before really criticizing the edit.
Yeah.
But I also think that if you hit a point in the middle of the season where everybody is noticing that female players are not really being shown very much and they're upset about that, I think that you should listen to that. I think
Mhm.
when you have a lot of women who are fans of the show or who have been on the show who are saying, this seems unfair, even when it's out of the context of the full story, I think that it is worth listening to those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Similarly, when players in season 49 say to you, "Hey, there was a story here about race that you erased from the narrative," that's problematic, and
Yeah.
that would be something I would at least hope there was a producer willing to listen to, and
Yeah.
think about. Maybe they do, and I'm just not privy to that. But and I
Yeah.
know that they make a defensive point about if you saw the raw footage, you would know how hard it is to do what we do, and also probably appreciate that we're giving players the best edit, not the worst.
And I do believe about Survivor based on things that people have said, who have been on the show, like based on the way that it looks compared to other reality shows. Like, I
Hmm.
believe that they really do actually try to show well rounded people who, and like, they don't include the worst moments for those
Yeah.
people. And I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think like we can only ever come from a place of partial information and like a pretty small amount of information. So it's true that like maybe there really isn't a version of the show where they could have adequately told the stories of the women on this season or on season 49, that story about race. But I'm skeptical about that. And I think that, you know, it comes from a place of really loving the show and wanting the show to be as good as possible. And the editors and producers, I think, are also coming from a place of loving the show and being very defensive of the show. But I think that, like, when you really love something and want to make it as good as possible, it's very important to listen to the people who also love it, who are saying, hey, this feels like a problem to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agree. That I think you said that really well. It makes me think of a moment in this last episode that made me angry that they didn't edit out, which was the players banding together to try and make sure that Tiff didn't win immunity. That felt really wrong to me, and I was angry at all of them for doing it, um, and so happy that it didn't work.
It did make it extra wonderful to see her win that challenge, knowing that they had all been working together against her and they just couldn't spell
I,
and then couldn't remember. Joe's done this puzzle before and lost it in the exact same way. How did he not know to look at the other
I
side?
know.
So it did kind of make it like a pretty glorious win in the end, which
Yeah.
is part of why it's always good to cast people who see the game differently and cast someone who might be a villain in a specific moment.
Right, right,
But it did make me, I don't know, I think like Liz did this on season 46
right,
with Maria, and it
right.
worked. And Maria lost, and she would have had the record for most challenges won if she had not, I think, been ganged up on. And it was tough to watch and it's frustrating, but it's also like these survivor challenges don't have a lot of rules, and people are always kind of trying to think outside of the box to further their games, and that's kind of part of Survivor. So I don't know. It made me mad in the moment because I love Tiff, and I didn't think it was fair that they all wanted her out so badly that they would do that. Because I do think the difference is that Maria was so obviously the most dominant player on that season on 46 when they did the same thing.
Mm,
To a greater extent. I mean, Liz completely abandoned her work to help Kenzie on season 46. But I think the difference here is that Tiff doesn't seem as obviously like a huge threat that they have to take out this time. So it just felt a little like ickier to me. But I also think that like that's kind of Survivor, so I'm not super mad at it.
Well, I guess so. So that was my big angry moment of I rarely get angry at Survivor moments
Hmm.
anymore, but that one made me angry. The
Yeah.
the whole movement to try and vote Tiff out felt to me like flimsily justified.
Yeah, I
Um,
kind of thought so too. And I just love Tiff. And then it was
yeah,
so fun to see her beat the odds and win that challenge. And
yeah,
then there was like the immediate heartbreak of realizing that meant that Cirie would probably go home.
I know. I know. So this is a good pivot back to Cerie's game because she's so good at picking up on things that when she asked Rizzo, what's the backup plan? And he said there isn't one, she knew that that
Yeah.
meant that it was her. And
Yeah.
I didn't
Immediately.
register that until much later. But she knew right away, what do you mean there's no backup plan? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, come on.
That's a red flag for sure.
Yeah.
Like Rizzo, you're telling me Rizzo doesn't have someone else in mind already? Like he's thinking about it.
And then her counter plan, I don't think was destined to work just because of who she is and how much she was a threat, no matter what.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was super smart because Rizzo
Yeah.
couldn't confess.
No.
He couldn't tell them that it was a lie. So he just had to sit there and then he had to do
Mm-hmm.
some pretty tricky interpersonal navigation. So Cirie is just
Yeah.
like way up
Yeah.
here. Best player. I'm just gonna. Except for Earl, best player ever.
No, I mean she's and maybe it's just recency bias too at this point, but I just am so impressed by her every time that she sets
Yeah.
foot on Survivor.
Well, I'm impressed by this season even more because her first couple of episodes didn't look great. She looked hesitant and tentative and thrown by her first failure in a challenge. And I thought, oh no, she's going to go home pretty early. She's not the Cirie that I remember. But that didn't last long. And
Yeah.
by the end, she was really right in control of that whole.
The way that she had them going to her for advice.
I know.
Like she's so well respected at this point, and everybody should see that that means that they should vote her out. But instead, it's like, oh well, I gotta ask Cirie because she'll know what to do.
Jonathan's
Yeah,
revealing to me that, I've got to run this by Cirie. Like, I think all of
yeah,
them thought that they were playing with Cirie, as one of their final three.
yeah.
I,
No, everyone did.
my guess is that Cirie's final three choices were Rizzo and Ozzy, and they couldn't have been better choices, really. I mean,
Yeah,
Ozzy might have gotten some votes. And Ozzy might have been a dangerous player to take to the very end, but I think she would have beaten Ozzy.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Tough call because Ozzy played a different game and was making connections in a way that I'm not sure she could have anticipated. Uh,
Yeah, but Cirie had all the connections that Ozzy had,
yeah,
but I
that's
think
true.
they like have more respect for her.
Yeah.
Besides maybe like a coach who really respects like a physical
Uh,
masculine game.
well,
Like I think that Cirie for sure would have won. I mean, I think Cirie would have beaten anyone on this season in the
yeah,
final three. I think I've been saying that since like
yeah,
the very beginning. And I know that I said that or maybe at some point I said really the most satisfying or the only satisfying ending for Cirie would be to win. But just to see her play this like super dominant game, like that was pretty satisfying. And she's satisfied. Like you can
yeah.
see it. Like even in her exit, as Geoff totally broke all precedent to like have her say the final words.
Oh,
He
that was,
hugged her. He like gave her a little speech. Like everybody knows it. Like
yeah,
it was a great game, and she and Devens both just seemed so grateful
yeah,
to be there,
yeah,
and that was part of what made this episode so like bittersweet.
yeah,
But yeah, she's just wonderful.
yeah.
We should probably talk about something besides Cirie at some point, but
Okay.
I just love her.
Well, what else is happening here? I know that a player again, this season, by the way, you and this season have turned me around a little bit on the shot in the dark. I used to
Yeah.
hate the shot in the dark. I thought it was stupid to ever give up your vote. But I concede that when it's obvious that you're gonna get all of the votes against you, you might as well take a shot. And 1 in 6 is better than 0 in 0. So
Yeah.
I
Well, and I did a little bit of digging,
okay,
and this season has had more shot in the dark plays and more like correct shot in the dark plays than almost any other season of Survivor. So it's been in the last 10 seasons, and four people on this season played the shot in the dark, and they played it at a time when the majority or just about every single vote was against them. So like it was clear that they knew they were going home, played it. And I think that if any of those people, Genevieve, Dee, Coach and Chrissy, or Devens, had hit on the shot in the dark, that would have been so entertaining. I'm sad that it didn't happen for some of
yeah,
them, less sad for others. But
yeah,
yeah, I think there are reasons that the shot in the dark is good, and I think that like it's not even that it's like good because of the potential of being saved, although it has led to some great moments on Survivor. I think it's good because it means that everybody tries harder to make the votes a little more surprising for the person going home. So yeah, I thought it was interesting that this season fewer people going home were surprised to be going home. Like the other season when the shot in the dark was played the same number of times, so 4 times, and all again by people who were correct that they were the person going home that night, was season 42, which was
oh,
on both seasons 41 and 42 because of when they were filmed. Just people on season 42 hadn't seen 41,
oh,
so the shot in the dark was new for everyone on both of those seasons.
yeah,
So it's interesting to me that the only other time it's been played this much and this successfully was a season when nobody quite knew what it was or how it worked yet. I thought that maybe the amount that it was played was more notable on this season than it actually was, because 4 times on a cast of 24 isn't like a crazy number. But I do think it's interesting that on a returning player season, so many people were so aware that they were going home. Like, I don't know if that means that the people going home were all very perceptive and just too good to fool. Like, I think Genevieve, Dee, Devens, all smart people, good game players,
yeah.
hard to blindside. So I don't know if it's that or if it's that people were just trying less hard to fool each other this season. I don't know,
Hmm.
but I did think it was interesting.
Wow, 4 out of 24, that's 1 in 6. Wait a minute, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
And the odds of the shot in the dark working are 1 in 6. Hmm. Hey, how many times has the shot in the dark actually worked? I can only remember off the top of
Only
my head.
it has worked 3 times, or it's like the player who's played it has been safe 3 times, but only two of those players were actually going to be going home. So Caleb on season 45 and then Mary on season 48 both played it successfully and were safe, and then a revote had to happen.
Okay, but how many times has it been played in total? Whether it was
It has been,
appropriate or not.
in total, it's been played 19 times. And I
So
did
three
the
out
math,
of
and that
19,
actually is really close. 3 out of 19 is really close to
about one in
1 in
six.
6.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, if I was on this season and 5 other players had played it and gone home, I would have played it for sure because that would mean I was going to be winning because that's how
That
odds
is
work. Because that's
unfortunately
stats.
not how statistics work, but um,
Oh, well. So, where do we go from here?
the finale,
The finale.
which I'm excited about, and I'm really excited about this live reunion. It'll be the first time in
Yeah.
a long time that we've had one of those, and with such great players who are having weird
Yeah.
post-season beef. I think it'll be a fun reunion.
Yeah.
The finale itself, I am excited about but I think I'm having a little bit less excitement than I would in some seasons simply because I think all of the main characters have already been voted out. Um, like,
Well,
looking back on this season, I think Christian ran the pre merge. I think
okay,
Cirie ran the post merge. I
okay,
think Devens and Emily and Coach even provided a lot of entertainment. Ozzy too.
yeah,
And now they're all gone. And we're left with people who have mostly had fewer confessionals than they would have had if confessionals were evenly split across all players. So
okay,
it's like kind of four under edited players going into the finale, which is just a weird energy. Like, I'm excited to see what's going to happen, and I think it'll be fun and interesting, but I think it's just a little bit less exciting because Cirie, mostly, but also a few of these other players are not going to be in it. I don't know.
yeah.
What do you think? How are you feeling about the finale?
Um, I would have, I would have been more excited if there was a Cirie battling for it, or even an Aussie. I think I keep also remembering this idea that somebody in the pre-press planted in me that this was going to be the season about who deserves it most. And I'm like, well, I don't know. These players did not play remarkable games. Nobody's standing out to me as a remarkable player. Tiff's game was kind of quiet at the start and really came on after the
Yeah.
merge. Every day was better and better and has built a really solid resume now. Rizzo, I think, is playing a better game in his head than he is to the jury. And I don't know why, but Joe doesn't seem to have had the opportunity or taken the opportunity to make some big moves. He's just kind of
No.
playing that down the road, middle honor and integrity. These are my allies kind of game that
Yeah.
unfortunately it's his allies that are making the big moves that he's going along with. So he's kind of a number.
Yeah.
Um, Aubrey, I think, has had an interesting game, but not quite been able to pull off any of the big moves that she wanted to, clearly wanted to. That leaves Jonathan, who I think Jonathan has made big moves in the game, but I think he has also had a pretty. I don't think his social game is going to pan out for him if he makes it to the final three. I don't think there's a. I think there's three players on that jury that would vote for him and nobody else. But
Yeah, I mean, Ozzy's literally sitting there rolling his eyes at Jonathan talking.
yeah,
Like, the jury management with Jonathan has been bad this season.
it has been.
I will. The thing that you said that I liked the least just then, I agree with
Okay.
most of it. But I think you can't credit Jonathan with making big moves and say that Aubrey hasn't been able to make big moves that she's wanted to. Because I think that the big moves Aubrey wanted to make are the ones that she made with Jonathan. And I think
Sure.
it's a little hard to parse out who gets credit for what. But I think Aubrey and Jonathan together, I think, along with like Tiff and Rizzo, get credit for Ozzy.
Yeah.
Tiff, despite not being there, I am sort of giving credit for it because I think that some of those conversations she
Yeah.
was doing a good job of pushing for it. And I think what else would we credit Jonathan with that we wouldn't credit Aubrey with? Like maybe Christian, but Aubrey was on the right side of that vote. An interesting fun fact is that technically Rizzo, Aubrey, and Joe have all been on the right side of every vote.
Yeah.
Um, Joe, incredibly begrudgingly so, which is why that will not help him. I think you're right that Joe just has no chance because
Yeah.
he's just sort of followed a lot of plans. And at this point, I think no one's really looking at taking him out because I think they're all aware that he is not favored by the jury.
Yeah.
Rizzo's tricky because I think there's no way that he can win with this jury because I
Right.
think that they don't have a ton of respect for him and they find him a bit annoying. And
Yeah.
it makes it hard to figure out how good his end game has been, because I think he's got a bit of sort of protective armor on, being someone that someone like Aubrey wouldn't mind sitting with at the end. Like, I don't think it was his intention to seem like a goat. I just think that he does a little bit, and so it makes it a little hard to tell how well he's actually playing. But I do think when you look at the history of his game, like, he started out not really being liked, but very quickly integrated himself and formed a pretty close alliance that he was part of with like Genevieve and Colby and those folks early on. He then built a pretty good alliance with Cirie and Dee for a time, took out someone who was gunning for him
Mm-hmm.
pre-merge, and then post-merge has been on the right side of every vote and has been hand in hand working with Cirie to orchestrate a lot of them. And I do give Cirie like 80% of the credit. And I think that's part of the problem with Rizzo, is that even if he can say, I worked really hard with Cirie and you didn't see it, like, I think that unless Cirie is really on the jury pulling for him, it will be hard for him to convince everybody that those moves are his as much as they would have been Cirie's, or even like 30% as much as they would have been Cirie's. But I do actually think that like a lot of the time the person Rizzo wanted to go home went home. When Christian went home, I think Rizzo was in the we should vote Christian, not Emily or Devens camp, if I'm remembering right. I think that Rizzo definitely wanted Coach and Christy to go, which was another pretty pivotal vote. And I think that Rizzo, while I think that the credit for the Aussie blindside is sort of diffused across a lot of people, and I'm still not sure it was the right decision for him or not, I do think that like Rizzo was sort of important in a lot of
Oh,
the pivotal votes of the season.
I would
So
go much further than you. As you're talking about it, I think Rizzo has the clearest claim to the most big moves of the season. I
I think
think that
so.
no matter how much credit you want to give to other players for Ozzy going home, it was Rizzo that decided not to tell him, and that was the most important part of that. I think that it was Rizzo that was out front of the Cirie vote, like vocally out front. And that's what I mean about Aubrey. I don't think that she can claim a sole authorship of any of the big moves, which maybe you can't do in this season anyway. But I think
Yeah,
a
because
lot of
Rizzo definitely doesn't get sole authorship of a single move.
no, no, but listen to me about Rizzo because he can say, "Look, I was the one that was turning on both of my biggest allies at the right moments," and I hope he's the one that plays his idol at five.
I think the interesting thing about Rizzo's idol at this point is that I think an idol can be either defense or it can be a weapon. And because it's a Billie Eilish boomerang idol, Rizzo's idol can't be a weapon because he can only play it on himself. But if everybody thinks that he's beatable at the end, it's not really credible as like
Uh,
defense either, because his defense is that nobody's attacking him. So
yeah,
I think it's like I think he's held on to his idols successfully, and it's just too bad that I think it might not matter.
yeah, maybe not.
Um,
I
I think that Rizzo had the odds way stacked against him this season, because I agree with you. I actually think that Rizzo has maybe played the best game of this final five. I do think that Aubrey has played. I think the edit and Aubrey herself are trying very hard to convince me that Aubrey is playing the best game, and
right.
I'm not super sold. But I do think she's tracked the game well, and to
Yes,
her credit, she has been a threat since the merge,
yes,
or at least she's been a target since the merge. They've
yeah,
been trying to get rid of her, and she has done a good job of working with the flow of the game and redirecting, like redirecting onto Aussie and redirecting onto Cirie and redirecting onto Tiff, even though that hasn't happened yet. I kind of think it might. So I think that
yeah.
I think she's played a decent game. I do think that Rizzo has played a good game, but I just don't think he has a chance of winning against this jury.
I agree. I don't think he has a chance of winning with this jury, and I think it's too bad because the more I think about it, the more I think were he another player, he would have the resume right now that would make
Yeah.
him the biggest target. It made me think uh, maybe the reason that nobody's going after his idol is that they want to sit next to him at the final three, right? Like
Yeah.
Rizzo is the player that they want to take with them to the final three because they think they can beat him, and they're probably right.
Yeah.
So maybe he hasn't gotten quite the heat that other players are getting, like Cirie. It made me wonder too. I'm baffled by the fact that I don't think anybody's really gone after Jonathan for a really long time. Um, since D for sure. Who went after him before that or after that?
I don't know if anyone really has gone after Jonathan. They've gone after his allies big time.
Yeah,
But and I just don't know if that's because they all kind of want to work with him or if it's because they're perceiving what I think we're perceiving, which is that the jury really doesn't seem to like him that much.
yeah. That's
Like, I just can't tell.
I can't either. It's a funny fact. Like I think almost everybody else's name has come up fairly consistently here and there, but not Jonathan's. And I don't know if that's a testimony to his game or if it's just that they all want to sit next to him at the end because they think he's another one that they'll
Yeah.
really beat.
But we don't need like three goats this season.
No,
like if we're assuming that people think Rizzo's beatable, and we're assuming that people think Joe is beatable. Like, oh, and this is what I was gonna say. I think that something that Aubrey really has going for her with this jury and this season and this like narrative of this season is that she is the only old era player left in the game. Everyone else is new era, like season 42 on. And Jonathan probably gets a little bit of the respect from the older era players because they like
yeah,
think they're cut from the same cloth. But I think they really want to vote for someone who feels historic. And
yeah,
even though I'd argue that Rizzo maybe has played kind of the most historic game in some ways, like I think Aubrey's win would feel much more like I think everyone would go home feeling good about that
yeah.
just based on who she is and what her story is.
Oh, yeah, it's a great story, and it's such a redemption for her last couple of appearances, and really it kind of corrects what some, including Aubrey for a while, would have argued was a real injustice in her big
Yeah.
season. I really like that Aubrey is like giving more credit to Michelle and also trying to learn from that mistake on camera,
Yeah.
and talking about who she wants to sit next to in the final three. And like, you're right, the edit is certainly making her seem like the most strategic player left. And her narrative arc is built pretty cleanly.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to see her get some recognition and respect. I feel, in fact, like often this season, I've thought, why is this player not getting more respect? Aubrey, when
Yeah.
she talks about how many hours she's logged or days that she's logged on the island,
Mhm.
when she talks about how many seasons she's played, when she talks about all of the, making it to the final three, like,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a player that anybody else who has had that kind of a history would get more respect coming out there. And she didn't seem to get all that much respect, really, that I could see on camera.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a real shame. It is interesting that she and Tiff made that friendship early on, and they're still alive in the game. I mean, I wonder if
Yeah.
that isn't an alliance that has been simmering, for a while.
Yeah, although they're definitely going head to head now. But I
Yeah,
do think that Aubrey has had little connections with people, like a little bit of working with Jonathan
right.
and a bit of this connection with Tiffany that have served her. And I
Yeah,
think she certainly hasn't had the social game that like Cirie had, but I think that she has worked the middle pretty well on this
right.
season. And I think that she has yeah, I think that she has deflected and found targets other than herself pretty well. And so I think that some people think that this edit is like really heavy-handedly pro Aubrey and they're a little skeptical that she's done enough to deserve that. But I actually do think that like she's played a solid
Me
game.
too.
And I think that a worse player would not have survived that last episode with
Right.
Cirie gunning for them.
Oh yeah.
And I think you can tell that Cirie has this sort of mutual respect with Aubrey, I
Yes.
think.
I feel like that was really highlighted a lot of things going on sort of beneath the surface. The when Cerise said, "Well, it's either me or Aubrey," like it was suddenly clear. Oh, right, like you're the two biggest threats on the island, you know.
Yeah.
And I also liked that Aubrey said, I've been playing the middle, which is hard. Like I've got to be very
Yeah.
careful right now.
Like Cirie was just playing like all sides, like
Yeah,
she wasn't even playing the middle because she was playing like the umbrella.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I like it's interesting to me that Aubrey is managing to get through with so little trust in her. Like
yeah,
I think even in that episode, like you could argue she's working most closely with Jonathan at the current moment, but like Jonathan was like, I do not like I want this to be clear, I do not trust Aubrey. Like she has made it far without any trust, and that is both I think something that you can argue is impressive, like to be untrusted, but so good at sort of manipulating the direction and pushing for someone besides yourself that people feel like they have to vote with you even though they don't trust you.
yeah,
You could also argue that it is a flaw. Like, you could argue that a really good way to play Survivor is by getting everyone to feel like they trust you. That's what Cirie does,
yeah.
and Aubrey is really not succeeding at that. So,
No,
I don't know, it's interesting. I think a lot of things about Aubrey's game you could argue if you framed them right at Final Tribal Council, they could either be like, wow, she's done this really well, or it could be framed as a weakness. Like I think, for example, the fact that she has been a target on people's minds since the merge, you could frame as, wow, I can't believe she's made it to the end with this target on her, or you could argue every vote they could have taken Aubrey out and they just chose to take a bigger threat out.
mm.
So I don't know. It's
Uh,
an interesting game, but I do think that she seems most likely to win. Although I just don't think that, like with all the heat on her, Tiff is going to make it to that final tribal. But I do think that if Tiff is in the final three, she has a good underdog story and she's got friends on the jury.
all of the things that you've just been talking about make me realize that um, if Aubrey makes it to the final three, she's going to have to do some really big moves in the next day. Like the odds do seem kind of stacked against her at this final 5 point. Um, she's not been terrific at challenges. And this season, although there have been some extenuating circumstances, like helping those.
Jonathan and Joe. Yeah. I don't know if we should count that as like an extenuating
Well, it was
circumstance.
her
I think that
choice,
was a
but
choice. And she could have looked at the other side of the puzzle too.
yeah, fair. I don't think she did her puzzle at all. She was trying to help them, but that's a
Anyways,
mistake.
I mean, she could have looked at the other side of Joe's puzzle, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. Oh well, that's true. Anyway, without trust from a lot of players, without a strong partnership, um, it seems like you're going to have to. That she's in a really tricky spot right now. If she makes it to the final three, maybe the story is really in what happens in the next episode.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be fire making?
I don't know. I think that the anti fire making crowd online is vocal, and I'm with them. But I think that, like, the vocal majorities that I feel like exist in my head don't always actually exist. Like, some of these other votes kind of surprised me. Like, it surprised me after people have been complaining so much about, like, we have to go back to a totally social game that doesn't have advantages, that, like, the most amount of advantages was the thing that fans chose by kind of a lot.
Neat.
So,
It was neck and neck, and then I cast the deciding vote.
yeah.
Most advantages possible.
So I don't know. In my head, I feel like there shouldn't be fire making. And I actually think that the voting dynamic with this Final Five at Final Four will be interesting. Like, I don't think it'll be a unanimous vote at Final Four. Like, I don't think that there's an obvious, unless Tiff makes it to Final Four and doesn't win that final challenge. I think we might even get fire making organically.
I'm embarrassed to say this, but don't there have to be two vote outs without fire making that are just live votes? You know, like you get voted out at five, you get voted out at four, then we're down to three.
But yeah, the final five vote will happen.
Yeah.
If there's not like fire making, they still have to vote, and if they tie, there will be actual fire making.
Oh,
And I think that that final four vote, depending on who goes at five, could actually be an interesting strategic dynamic because I don't think that in this final five there is a huge dominant threat.
okay.
Like, I think maybe Tiff. There's room for interesting gameplay depending on who goes at five if there's not fire making. I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Do you think that there's more interesting gameplay without fire than with it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that how you always feel?
No. I mean, you know that I hate fire making and I think it messes with the incentives, but I do think that one person who's won immunity deciding on two people to potentially send home can be a more interesting strategic decision than four people deciding who to vote for.
Mhm.
Like four people deciding whether or not they want to force a tie and force fire making. Like, I think that sometimes that final four, there is such an obvious unanimous vote that that's not strategically interesting, but having one person who's won immunity choose two people is more strategically interesting. But I think in this case, or in a case where the relationship dynamics are complicated and the threat levels are not so skewed, I think that's a much more interesting strategic decision than
Okay.
like one person. Because it's always more interesting when there are multiple people making decisions and they have different motivations in those decisions.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you have a final three pick?
I think Joe will be in it. Um, and I think Aubrey. I kind of think it'll be Joe, Rizzo, and Aubrey.
That's mine.
But yeah,
I
I
think
think that's my pick.
something bad is going to happen with Jonathan. Either a fire making failure or some betrayal at the end, but it won't involve Joe. So maybe Jonathan goes
Yeah.
out at five, in the next vote.
It if people didn't vote for fire making, it could be an interesting 2-2 split where Joe and Jonathan vote for someone and then the other two vote for Jonathan and then Jonathan goes home in an organic fire making, which I am once again saying is way more interesting and tense to watch than the artificial fire making.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. If Jonathan makes it to the final three, I think he has a bigger chance of siphoning votes away from the other two, whoever the other two are.
Yeah.
Um,
It just feels like there's like more like negativity towards Jonathan filtering onto the jury in like kind of a key point. Like I think
yeah,
Steph's a little bitter that Jonathan didn't try harder to save her. I
yeah,
think Ozzy's bitter.
oh yeah.
And I think that could sway someone like Coach who seems like he would obviously vote for Jonathan. Who's your final three pick?
I think it's going to be Joe, Aubrey, and Rizzo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's complicated because of what's going on out of the game this season. But
Yeah.
so I don't know. I think that would still be my pick of players that will make it. Joe is the kind of a wild card. It's not who I would
Yeah.
want to see there, but the three that I would want to have seen would have been Cirie, Ozzy, and Rizzo.
For sure. That would have been like the best version of
Yeah.
this season. Although the last few votes might have been boring because of it.
Yeah, probably.
Um,
This has been a twisty little ending to the game.
and I haven't hold out that Jonathan really might make the final three and just not get votes. Or maybe Jonathan will be the winner of this season.
It could be.
Who
It
knows?
could be.
But, because he does have a more dominant edit than I think maybe anyone else on this season, actually, at this point.
And when you look at the jury, I know that you just ticked off quite a number of players that are maybe against him now. You could make the argument that the honor and integrity trio are still going to remain locked in with him.
Yeah,
And
like I think Chrissy has spoken really highly of his game,
yeah,
for example.
yeah. Can't imagine Coach really being swayed away from him. Anyway,
Well, next week is the finale.
yeah,
Um, Join us again next week to hear us talk about the finale.
yeah,
Thanks to everyone who is watching and
yeah.
listening. We appreciate your engagement. I sound a bit like a social media robot. But that's okay.
You would sound more like a social media robot if you said it. We appreciate your engagement.
We appreciate your engagement.
Oh! All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us again. I hope you'll join us again for our last episode for season 50.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Love you.
Love you.